Welcome to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, a husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach, and warrior, Jesse Ewell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell. And today, I have a very special guest. His name is Garrett Salpeter, who is the founder of NeuFit, which is a device called Newbie, an acronym for Neurobioelectric Stimulator. So Garrett, I just want to welcome you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so I've read about your device, and I actually kind of want to go back to how you got into this, and maybe you could take me back to kind of the place where you first started. I know you were in sports growing up. Is this kind of the place where it started, where you were kind of fascinated with, sports and things like that? But where exactly did you start out with this?
Yeah, definitely. So as an athlete growing up, I played ice hockey, and I wasn't much of an athlete, but I loved the game. And so I actually became enamored with strength and conditioning and this notion that we are malleable and adaptable, and that we could change and we could improve, and that we could put in work to actually, change ourselves for the better. And I ended up, focusing probably too much on strength, not enough on speed, and it didn't necessarily translate onto the ice. But I really got excited about physiology and what we could do to change physiology. And I at one point thought I was going to go pre-med until I had these injuries, and my experiences with traditional physical therapy, traditional orthopedic medicine were just, I could just tell that wasn't for me. So I ended up switching gears. I was set to go to engineering graduate school, and then my last year in college, I was already set to become an engineer. I had this really life-changing experience where I had some torn ligaments in my wrist. I was supposed to have surgery and be out for 3 months last year of college ice hockey, and I ended up meeting a chiropractic neurologist who showed me functional neurology and how a neurological approach to something that's traditionally thought of as being orthopedic, how that approach actually helped me heal the ligaments without surgery. And I was back in 3 weeks instead of 3 months. It was my first exposure to direct current technology, using more primitive versions of what we're using now. And having this experience was just like a eureka moment. I felt like I had finally found potentially an area where I could take this passion that I had, but didn't really know how or where to apply it, or even if I would ever be able to. And so I ended up doing some apprenticing with that doctor. And as I was finishing engineering school, I made arrangements to open up. So about 11 years ago, here in Austin, Texas, had 150 square feet in the back of a different chiropractic office. Started doing this using earlier versions of the technology and these methods that I had learned from functional neurology, and kept learning from other mentors. And I actually went back to graduate school in neuroscience. And then, as the methods were evolving, eventually the limiting factor became the technology itself. And so I was waiting for other people to come out with different things. I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd have a machine of my own or anything like that. But eventually I just saw all these challenges and opportunities and said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. And ended up working with some electrical engineers, and after a couple of years of work, came out with the Newbie.
Okay, so let's kind of back up and go to functional neurology. Can you explain a little bit to our listeners what exactly that is?
Yes, absolutely. And that's really the foundation of all of this, and why we call our business NeuFit. We just try to put the neurology right in the name. And functional neurology describes how different inputs or different interventions or treatments or techniques, how they create neurological signals that influence and change the function of the nervous system. And so thinking of the nervous system as a feedback loop, if you can make good inputs, you have a chance to change outputs for the better. And there's some cool examples of this, like for instance, we'll do a treatment with somebody and say they can squat 225 pounds in the beginning of the treatment. And then at the end of the treatment, after 20 minutes, now they can squat 285 pounds. And you think about that and you think, well, normally to gain that much strength, you'd have to go through a 12-week periodized strength program or something, something like that. But here, it was an impossibly short period of time for those strength gains to happen in that typical way that we think about gaining strength. And so the difference is changing the function of the nervous system, this functional neurology approach, where we know, again, because it was such a short period of time, we know that person was already capable of squatting that heavier weight, that 285. They just couldn't figure out the neurological commands to do it, or more likely, their brain wouldn't let them do it. It was limiting their output as a protective mechanism, because the brain is trying to prioritize survival, trying to prevent us from getting hurt. And it cares much more about us living to see tomorrow than it cares about us squatting an additional 50 or 60 pounds. And so making changes in the nervous system can allow us to tap into that potential that's already there, just lying dormant. And then once we've tapped into that, then we want to go about things in the more usual way, where we think about longer term training and different things like that. But functional neurology is about tapping into those untapped resources.
Okay. So neurology, if you're a listener, has to do with the brain. And it's kind of like that's your, let's just say, computer system. And it's sending out signals, telling things to fire, and like what you're saying is your machine is almost like a wiring to get your brain to fire to produce or to increase performance or to improve performance, whether it's from a recovery perspective or just someone getting that much better. Is that maybe a way to say that? Or
yeah, that's a fabulous way to say it. And I think sometimes the metaphor of hardware and software is helpful. If the computer is your physical structures of the body, the bones, the muscles, the connective tissues, and then the software is the neurological impulses that command those muscles to move the bones and are what trigger the underlying performance or lack thereof, and control so many aspects of what those structures are able to do.
Yeah, amazing. And so, I go to a chiropractor regularly. I've been to several different types. There's some I know that kind of work off the brain and do a lot of like testing that way. And then there's some that are maybe a little more traditional that seem to just kind of do adjustments and some light testing and things like that. But what I'm really hearing you say is like you created something that may have been a way ahead of a lot of other recovery protocols and stuff like that out there, because there has been electric stimulators for a long time. I can even remember them back in high school, but you've created something very specific to work off this, correct? Your machine?
So there definitely is, as you said, electrical stimulation has been around for a while. There's a rich history of electrical stimulation. And so it's definitely a case of standing on the shoulders of giants and building off of what has come before us. And, so there is definitely some acknowledgement for that and everything that's come before us. One of the biggest differences and biggest steps forward is the way that this particular technology is able to harness the power of direct current as opposed to alternating current. And many of the device, actually a vast majority of the devices that are out there, the TENS units, the Russian stem interferential, the ones you might buy at Walmart or the other ones you buy online, are going to be alternating current. And there's some benefits with that. At a lower level, you get some mild stimulation, you get some increases in blood flow. However, when you turn it up to a high enough level to really make a difference and that signal volleys back and forth, you end up causing co-contraction. And that's, if you're trying to move this way, but you're being resisted here. It's like you're trying to do that, but your muscles are in a tug of war against each other. It's almost like driving a car, hitting the throttle and the brake pedal at the same time. And that, as you can imagine, has some downsides. It can cause the body to become less efficient and waste energy. Having to overcome that internal resistance of excessive tension in the opposing muscles. And it can also train the body to stiffen and shorten. And we want to be more pliable. We want to be able to bend but not break. Whereas the shorter and stiffer those muscles are, the more likely they are to break. And so you can, in theory and in practice, increase the risk of injury as well.
Okay. So what you're saying is you've created something. Is this something that no one else really has tapped into or created? Is this kind of like unique to you and what you've spent your whole time doing? Because I can remember some of these direct current things, getting them from like Asia, putting them on and like, okay, man, like things are going to change. And it was kind of like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. So there are a couple other devices. Like even when I had my experience with my wrist injury that I shared with you, I did get exposure. That was really my first window into some of the effects of direct current and what it can do for healing tissues of the body. That's something that the Soviets knew in the 70s. The issue then was that to get therapeutic levels of direct current into the body, it would literally burn the skin. And so, their athletes would walk around with burns on them, and they could do that for Mother Russia, but we couldn't necessarily do that over here. And so there are other direct current devices out there. Typically, they use much lower power because of those same issues. So this is part of the benefit in the technology, part of that step forward is being able to get such high levels, such therapeutically effective levels of direct current into the body without any skin discomfort. So it's that refinement and the use of particular carrier frequencies and things like that. So that's part of what's in our first patent and some of the different things that we're doing. And then a big part of it, honestly, is besides the technology is the methods for using it, the way that we apply it, the way that we use it to assess and treat, and the way that we implement it in training. Those are all definitely part of the process. So it's a whole system, both the technology and the methods for using it. And I think that's definitely where a lot of the value comes in as well, is in how it's applied.
Okay. So are you a chiropractor yourself?
So my formal background is physics, engineering, and then I was in a PhD neuroscience program. I ended up taking a leave of absence in order to launch the newbie. So that's my education. And now, I have been working in different medical offices and over the last many years have developed different treatment strategies and methods. And so now I'm training other people. So training physical therapists, chiropractors, athletic trainers, some other, fitness trainers, some other medical people, in how to use these and apply them in their practices and in their businesses.
So basically you're taking your system and you're implementing that into a training protocol, recovery protocol. I'm guessing you probably have kind of two types of clients you're going to work with, one who's maybe recovering from injury and one who just wants to excel, or is it all kind of start out as recovery and then you go into kind of the next level after that once they're back to kind of that baseline?
That's a great question. So it's definitely both. People come in to see us or our network of practitioners around the country for both of those reasons. One being they're injured or in pain and they want to recover faster or more completely or more effectively. And then the other is that they want to improve their fitness or performance. And in many ways, the process starts in a similar way. And there's a lot of overlap between good, effective rehabilitation and good, effective training. In part because the first thing we want to do is identify where there's any neurological dysfunctions, where that software, we talk about software and hardware, where that software signal is off, because the same issues that would have someone stuck in a cycle of chronic pain, the same issues that would have someone with reduced range of motion or not able to do the things that they want to do that bring them in for rehab, those same types of issues and neurological patterns can be present in someone even if they don't have an injury currently and they think they're healthy and they want to do fitness or performance training. And so working on them from that angle first, identifying and improving dysfunctions first is also very helpful, because it sets the stage for them to be able to make progress much, much faster. Because so much training, if someone has those types of patterns where their muscles are fighting against each other, for example, it's like pushing a boulder uphill for the whole training process. It's going to be more challenging. Results are going to come more slowly. There's probably going to be more episodes of injury and more missed training along the way when you're fighting that uphill battle. So there is a lot of overlap in how we would start working with somebody, and then it may diverge, of course, depending on their goals.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of traditional models of, physical therapy and chiropractic, or even training in the gym world, is kind of that gas and brake at the same time. And so the movement, or at least, moving forward, seems to be very difficult. And I think, what I'm hearing you say is you've kind of created a way that's like, hey, we're going to make sure we're pressing on the gas and not the brake at the same time. And we're moving forward instead of, kind of like revving the engine, as loud as it can go, but we're only going to move, like an inch forward at a time.
Amen. And that's a great way to put it. And I'm reminded, hearing you say that, of a conversation I had with a powerlifter who we've worked with, who actually has one of our machines and is a trainer and implements this in his program with his clients. And he talked about how in the first year that he started using the newbie, he could get an extra heavy session in every week because he was able to reset the tone on his muscles. So that's I talked about alternating current and how it shortens and stiffens muscles. I don't think I even mentioned this direct current has the opposite effect, where it can preferentially relax muscles, reset the tone on muscles. And so he was talking about how that the ability of this machine and this approach to help him recover allowed him to get an extra heavy training session in each week. And it allowed him to no longer have to do his deload weeks every 4 weeks or so. And so he was able to get that much extra volume of training in that first year, and made even more progress, and ended up winning some meets that were, higher profile in the powerlifting world. And, it made a big impact for him because he was just able to keep moving forward at a faster rate.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. It's fascinating to understand the difference of the two, but it's also fascinating to, talk about kind of the science and just what you're capable of when everything is working together the way it's supposed to work.
Amen.
And so how do you actually tap into see what's working or not working? Is that part of your system that you have, is you're able to actually pinpoint, hey, here's what's, misfiring or maybe, not working. And then how do you tap into that?
Exactly. That's a big part of it. And it's a similar approach to you're talking about different chiropractic methods and other professions. Many physical therapists do similar. You're talking about your experience with a chiropractor who's doing a lot of tests, looking at the output of different areas to get insights into how the brain is working. And what we're attempting to do is to take some of that, not all of it, but some of that, and put it into a process that one can do with this device. So it's a little more, reproducible, a little less dependent on the individual's background or things like that. And it allows us to do, because of the direct current, the unique effects that it has on the nervous system, it allows us to go through a process where we can do exactly as you said. We can actually scan around on the body and pinpoint where some of these problems are. And in order to do that, we have to go back to the part where we talked about how the brain's number one priority is survival. And the brain is constantly limiting us. It's telling us to do less, to conserve energy, to not move too fast, not lift too much weight, don't contract too hard, because our brains don't want us to get injured. They're afraid that if we do too much, whatever that is, that we will injure ourselves and we'll be left lying around and we'll get eaten by a tiger. That's the primitive brain, right? And the way that works is that means that the brain actively governs or inhibits or reduces output in certain areas of the body. And so basically what we do is we scan around all the areas of the body, and based on how the body responds, we can tell where the brain is imposing those patterns. And so as simple as scanning around with an electrode from our device, and then where there's a perceived threat from the brain, where we're sending the signal as if we're actually loading that area. It's like you're challenging this muscle or that muscle or that muscle. And wherever the brain thinks that the body is up to the challenge, it doesn't have to react or respond. It just says, okay, that's just Jesse being Jesse. And then wherever that area has not been working well in the recent past, or where the brain is imposing one of these patterns, it's going to fight against that and it'll have a different response. And so based on that response, we can tell where some of these underlying issues are. And then we know where we want to stimulate that person. And we can use the same device both for the assessment and for the subsequent treatment.
Okay. So what's one thing you're noticing now more and more? Is it different today? Say today with you have all this, social media, iPhones, computers, access to everything versus 11 years ago. Are you seeing more people in this primitive state than ever before? Versus where you kind of were 11 years ago, or like what's kind of that for you?
That's an interesting question. I think that there's certainly common issues that many of us have. I mean, and nothing original to me or anything, but we talk a lot about how chronic sitting is an issue, and how that leads to certain dysfunctions and certain postural changes. And so there are common hotspots that many people have. When we scan around on the body, something that shows up as more reactive, we would say shorthand would be a hotspot. So when I say that, that's what I mean. So the patterns of where those dysfunctions show up are, there's some commonality that we're some more common spots that we find, which I think might be based on like some spots in the upper back and shoulders from people, being on phones and typing and being at computers, being that thoracically rounded position and all that stuff. So that's something that I think, maybe there was a little more of. It was already a lot of that even, 11, 12 years ago, but maybe a little more of that. I do like with social media, there's the opportunity for any news or any information, good or bad, to spread faster. But there are, I think, more opportunities to get good information and to follow on social media people like yourself who are sharing valuable information, who are really getting helpful pointers and helping people understand both tactically what they can do and strategically why it matters. So that's one of the things that I just I think about when I think about the last 10 years and hear you talking about social media.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely, it definitely helps. I also see a lot of clients who it can put them in kind of this state of, fight or flight, just based off of, comments or stuff going on, on social media. So I kind of look at it both ways. It's like, hey, you can get a lot of great information on there, and you can also kind of get addicted to, the stress and stimulation of it also.
That's true. Definitely a downside.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. This is in chiropractic clinics, physical therapy, some, trainers and stuff like that. But where are you seeing the biggest changes or the biggest results in this from those perspectives on how this is actually helping clients?
That's a very good question. So the answer is it's going to be pretty broad, and that is, I think, by design, because when you work neurologically, you have an opportunity to affect change in so many areas, because the nervous system is the master control system of the body. So you can affect change in muscle firing patterns, in movement, in range of motion, in strength. So anything around athletic performance, you can affect changes in pain. You can also affect changes in other things that are controlled by the nervous system, like organ function. So sometimes the autonomic nervous system or other things that the nervous system controls. So there is a wide range. The originally, when I first started out, and still to this day, one of the biggest use cases is definitely helping people recover faster from acute injuries. So think athletic injuries, or you fall and hurt something, sprain an ankle, separate an AC joint, something like that. Recovering from those and those traumas, traumatic injuries, and the trauma of surgery. And a large part of why it's so helpful there is that, many times in life in general, I think this is a great principle. It's not as much about what happens to us as it is about how we respond to it. And the way the body responds to trauma is by contracting and protecting, thinking that that tissue is going to get attacked again at any moment. And so that a lot of why it takes so long to heal is that in the process of guarding and protecting, the body actually, by shutting down that, closing off that area, reduces the ability to send blood and nutrients and raw materials in to heal. And so being able to change that pattern, reset that, so you can take that guarding and relax and reset the tone on those tissues, really allows, it gets the impediments out of the way and allows the body to heal at a natural rate, which is often much, much faster than anyone would think. So recovering from injuries like that, also injuries and surgeries, and then chronic pain. People who have chronic pain, we've seen some incredible outcomes, where people feel like they get their lives back. And then because it is such a neurological approach, we have in the last couple of years started working with people with what we more typically think of as neurological challenges, like spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, MS. And we've seen, we're in the early stages of doing some work there, and we've been working with some leaders in those fields and seen some really cool things. Some people make very little progress over a long time. Some people get out of wheelchairs and make life-changing progress in a matter of a few months. And so we're still trying to figure out the ways to optimize all of that. But we've seen some really cool outcomes there. And then also in the fitness and performance world, by optimizing movement patterns, by using technology to enhance muscle recruitment and get the similar benefits, many of the same benefits of lifting heavy, but without having to necessarily load up nearly as much weight on the spine to do squats, or as much on the shoulders to do bench press, or different things like that, to still get some of those benefits by using the technology like this to enhance the recruitment of muscles.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If I'm working with you as a client, are you training a pattern of movement? Say if it was like recovery, or someone laying down on a bed, like how does that exactly work? Or is it a little bit of both depending on kind of where that person's at?
So whenever we can, we will be doing movement. So for most people that we or our practitioners are working with, they will be doing movement. So it could be everything from my knee hurts when I'm walking, so we'll be walking and lunging and different things. It could be my back hurts when I'm hitting a golf swing, and so they might actually start swinging with the machine on to reset that exact and retrain that exact movement pattern. Because if their back hurts when they swing, there's something about how they're coordinating that movement is likely off or dysfunctional. And so being able to combine the right stimulation in a very targeted, specific, meaningful way can help them retrain those movement patterns oftentimes very quickly. And so people will actively be moving while it's on, unless we're working with someone who's paralyzed or has
Sure.
lost function. And sometimes we'll be doing the movement for them, or it'll be more passive. But for the most part, it is a very active treatment, which again is another component that with traditional electrical stimulation you normally can't do because of that, where it locks you up.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of makes total sense. Is the traditional way of doing this, you'd lay down and, you're feeling this. So what you're saying on this is you're putting people in the pattern that may bring on, pain, or may bring on some type of dysfunction. And that's the pattern you're training them through to get them to start firing everything that needs to be fired to perform at an optimal level. And then obviously if they have some type of, trauma or disability, you may be just working through that range of motion in a passive way, while the machine's working.
Exactly. Yep. And we've found that if you think about corrective exercise, if someone's trying to work on some new movement pattern, it might take tens of thousands of repetitions. And with the feedback from this machine and the way it can accelerate that re-education process and the learning associated with that, it could happen in thousands instead of tens of thousands of reps, or it could just that much faster.
Yeah, and for people listening to this, I mean, typically if you have surgery or have some type of injury, the recovery time is 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, depending on the injury. And a lot of times the traditional model of PT is just to get you back to like baseline. It's not to really get you past that. And really what I'm hearing you say is, hey, we're going to not only get you to baseline, but we're going to get you past that in much shorter amount of time. And I'm kind of hearing that's what you're seeing a lot of, is people are recovering, faster from injuries, trauma, surgeries, whatever that is, or just getting stronger in a faster setting.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great way to say it.
So I come from 20 years in the personal training industry, where it was like corrective exercise, all these things like you talk about. But one of the frustrating things is what happens when people, maybe how long do you usually prescribe a treatment, or is it ongoing, or once that movement's corrected, do you move on to something else, or is it just entering into more of your protocol?
So it depends on the person. Many people come to us to reach one immediate goal or milestone, to get out of pain, to be able to get back to playing a sport, or be able to get back to lifting up their children, or be able, lifting up like a smaller child, probably not a grown child, but and for some people, once we work with them, and it could be 3 sessions, could be 10 sessions, whatever it is, getting over an ankle sprain to get back on the football field. When they're done with that, sometimes they'll go, we will have kind of reset that new foundation, and from there they'll go back to what they were doing, and we'll tell them that there absolutely is a chance that if they go down the same road they went down before, the injury can come back and we might have to work together again. Or there are things that they can do to maintain the work that we've done, and maybe even build upon it and continue to work. And so with some people, we'll say, well, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? And then we'll continue to work on that. And so it's definitely an individual case by case basis, but there's a whole continuum that we have from that early stage rehab all the way through fitness and elite performance. And so usually we can help people at different stages, depending on how much they want to do with us.
Sure. How often do you use this?
So
on yourself?
I train with it depending on my travel schedule and different things, but I get at least 2 intense sessions in with it a week. And so 30 minutes twice a week, and I can at least, maintain all of my strength and health and fitness. And then when I'm home more, I'll get a third or a fourth in. And I really like it because for me, now I'm no longer, I'm not a college athlete, or so, now I'm more of a busy working person. And so for me, I really like the time efficiency, where in that 30-minute session, I can simultaneously work on strength, on joint mobility and health and movement optimization. I can work on my endurance and get my metabolic rate going, and get that mental push where I'm having to challenge myself as well. So I really like being able to do all of that at once.
Sure. So obviously you've been using this for 11 years, correct?
Originally it was kind of more primitive version. So only since 2016 or 17 have we had this version and been able to do all the things that we're doing with it now.
Okay. So what's been the biggest benefit for you personally?
For me, getting out of pain and avoiding surgeries. I mean, I mentioned the wrist surgery. I also have been able to avoid surgeries on my back and hip from injuries that I had back that were just really chronic and were bothering me from my ice hockey days. So that's a big one for me personally. And then now I really do appreciate what I had mentioned previously about being able to train so efficiently and take, whereas I used to spend an hour to an hour and a half, 5 days a week in the gym, now I can get a similar amount of benefit, in these two 30-minute sessions, even if it's two 45-minute sessions, it still allows me to do it just in a much more time efficient way.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So if someone's listening to this and maybe there's someone in pain, uh, what would you recommend, or maybe someone who's had some injuries, what would you recommend for them to maybe start doing as to find out more about you and what your team's doing?
Yeah, definitely. So I would encourage anyone listening who does have pain or is working through injuries to check out our website, which is www.new, like neurological, new.fit, no.com or anything, just new.fit. Um, and then check out, I mean, you can certainly check out the content on there. At the top of the page, there's a locations tab. And I would look on there and see if hopefully there is someone nearby that you can see to actually try it out, because it's one thing for us to talk about it, but it's another thing to actually feel what's going on. And most people, thankfully, experience a tangible difference and some improvement even in just the first session. So I would encourage people to try it out and see what you can find. And many times the process will speak for itself.
Sure. And if you are, chiropractor, physical therapist, maybe personal trainer, um, maybe even massage or whatever, some type of athletic trainer, where can they go to find out more about the newbie?
So there, we'll have a special landing page that everyone who's listening in that domain can check out. So new.fit, same website /habit. And we'll have a special offer actually for everyone who's listening to this podcast. So hopefully there, if you are in that physical therapy, chiropractic, athletic training world, and you're listening to this, please check that out. And we've got a little special offer for you. And we'd love to talk with you about how it may be able to fit into your practice.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to go check one of these out next time I'm in Tacoma. So
Heck
uh,
yeah.
I think one of the cool things is what people have access to now versus there's so many things that we have access to actually help assist people in getting out of pain,
Hmm.
to where you know it's it used to be like, hey, you could only go to this person, or you could you go to the doctor and you get prescription. And it's like, okay, well, that's like masking the pain, but that's not really getting someone out of pain. And I think what's cool is you've created a way for people to get out of pain that doesn't require prescription, medication. It doesn't require them to, you've just made it accessible, which is really cool. And I think it's, for me, it's like to see people passionate about what they're doing, and to take, hey, you had this issue, and to actually find, you're like, hey, I found a way to heal from this without having to have surgery. And I actually found a way to help other people heal from pain or injuries or traumas, is super powerful to hear that and see that. So I just want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being on here. It's an honor to be on your show, and I appreciate the opportunity to share this message.
Yeah. So what's kind of next for you guys in 2020?
So we are definitely focused on spreading this message more and more, and finding more like-minded therapists, doctors, practitioners who care like we do, care about the results and the outcomes that they get with their patients and their clients, and sharing with them what this can do. And so for me, running our certification program and training more and more practitioners is really a huge priority for me. And I love those. That's been one of the coolest things in the last 2 years is seeing how we've been able to teach this work to people and they've been able to go out and work in their communities and see and impact the lives of people that we would never be able to interact with, and how they've been able
Sure.
to get similar outcomes and make a really positive impact in their communities. So definitely more of that. And then we've got some research studies underway. We'll be looking at clinical outcomes for comparing what we're doing versus traditional physical therapy for patients recovering from different types of orthopedic surgeries. We'll be looking at what's happening in the body physiologically, some of the mechanisms of action for how it helps build muscle and change the dynamics of what's going on in muscles and the surrounding environment after a session on the machine. And then we also have some special opportunities to look at different populations with a hospital system here, looking at how this can help patients recover from strokes. And then with another group elsewhere in the country, doing some work on MS patients. And
Oh, wow.
I'm really excited about a lot of the research that we have going on, and I imagine we'll have much more to share this year.
Amazing. So one thing I want to back up on is you have a certification program where you get people certified in using this device. You provide the education, and I'm sure the ongoing support in doing this. What is the process of that?
Yeah, so for practitioners, so therapists, chiropractors, other doctors or athletic trainers, people who can implement this, some fitness trainers as well. We would have them watch some video, a few hours worth of video content in advance. So, for people who already have a physiology background, right? We're not just taking anyone off the street, but
Right.
they watch several hours of video content in advance, and then they come to our level 1 certification. So it's 3 full days here to learn some of the basics, and that's enough to help people get started. It's kind of the 80-20 principle, giving people the 20 or 30% that helps them in 80 or 90% of the scenarios that they see. And then we have a whole, obviously you're not giving everybody everything they need in a long weekend. So we have that continuing education and a support infrastructure where people can log on to our group and ask questions and look up other discussion topics. And we have a library where people can refer to hundreds of, I guess just under 200 videos of different techniques they can reference. And we have regular mastermind group learning calls and different things to help with the education along the way. And then one other thing this year that I'm excited about is rolling out for the first time some of the more advanced certification levels. So we've got the level 1 that a few hundred people have gone through, and we'll start the end of this year the level 2, which is a fun project as well.
Okay, awesome. And I would imagine having these, it kind of forces you to continue to grow, because it's like, hey, if you have level 1, you got to have level 2. If you have level 2, eventually you got to have level 3, 4. And so that kind of pushes you with your learning. And I'm sure having other people use this device gives you an opportunity to kind of collaborate together to help, accelerate the learning and accelerate the results in your program.
Oh, absolutely. We have people, using our technology who specialize with patients who have very complex neurological pain disorders and have very specific, clients who are working on bodybuilding or have very specific golfing clientele and do a lot of rotational work for golf or baseball or things like that, and many different specialties. And so working closely with people who are applying this in such specific areas and doing such a deep dive into these applications, helps us all get better and be able to work with them to tweak and optimize different recommendations and programs and methods. And so, yes, part of it is by design. We want to all evolve and improve together.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I just want to congratulate you one more time and just thank you for being on here.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, and it was wonderful. Thanks again.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I will be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, feel free to reach out to me, Jesse, at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.